Episode 6 of The Ultimate Fighter is in the books. O'Neill, Theo Lander here to take you through the latest episode of season 32 of The Ultimate Fighter. Coming off a pretty hot episode 5, Theo, with the fight between Ramaska and Usmanov. Obviously, they return into the house and getting all the plaudits this week, and rightly so after a fantastic fight last week. A fight that's going to be very difficult to live up to coming into episode 6 here. Obviously, the two guys that we are going to be talking about towards the end of this podcast, Tom Teokaris and Ryan Loader, do throw down. They did at the end of this episode, but we got to talk about the start of the episode, and we'll bring it right back around to Ramaska and Usmanov. They got their plaudits, Theo, didn't they? And rightly so.
Yeah, they absolutely did. It was a really cool moment to see, they walk in the house and it feels like everyone's just gathered around the living room waiting for them to get back in. Which I think was really cool because, like, even though the fight, the way that it played out, you're sort of like worried for the guy's health. And even a couple of those guys said, I'm glad that didn't go to a third round for both of you. It just kind of goes to show you, like, fighter to fighter, athlete to athlete. Like, that's the stuff they respect because they know what that means to go through a war like that, and they know the type of sacrifices they make in that process as well. So yeah, I love seeing athletes big up in each other. I love seeing that happen on the UFC level, especially the TUF house here when you know how hard the tournament is to begin with. So yeah, it feels like we're in a good spot up until later in this episode. A big kumbaya moment, and I feel like everyone in the house is really getting along well this season thus far.
They they have been getting on quite well. Lots and lots of respect here. We normally see a little bit of a turn in the screw when it comes to house drama. The house drama rating has been disastrous this season. All the fighters have been super respectful for one another, actually representing themselves very, very well. Very disappointing from a fan's perspective. I love a bit of house drama. You love a bit of house drama. I'm sure the audience loves a bit of house drama. We ain't getting any house drama. But in walks Edwin Cooper Jr. to you.
In walks Edwin Cooper Jr. with the oldest play in the history of reality TV. It doesn't matter what the premise is, doesn't matter where in the world they are, doesn't matter if it's a mix of people. Get 20 people in a house, take away their phones, give them alcohol, and then get the cameras ready. That's all that it takes for some of these places. And even in a competition like this, where you have to be ready for fights days after days after days and to make weight over and over again, there still seems to be a room for guys who haven't yet competed to be drinking heavily in the middle of this. And Cooper seemed to be the one who was sort of falling down that path in this episode. We had the fight night where Valentine is sort of gathering everyone in the living room. He's like, all right, Cooper, like, this is the part where you stop talking, blah, blah, blah. Clearly he's not stopping. And we're all sort of wondering, like, why is he so colorful right now? Why is he so vibrant? He's been on the drink for a while. And apparently, according to some of the people in the house, it's been an ongoing issue for a while. So yeah, he ends up getting liquored up. They show us some scenes here where he's going back and forth with some guys over some stuff he probably shouldn't be upset about, slurring his words quite a bit as well. So a bit of a rocky start here for our introduction to Edward Cooper Jr., but we finally did get some drama.
We certainly did. Edwin Cooper Jr. sneaking a drink. You know what we call that in Ireland? We call it, Theo, having an old Connie one. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Old
an old
quite one.
Connie one.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Just a few little ticklers there. He was hiding it well in the bottle of Prime as well. You have to give it to him. I was like, hey, so what's that bottle of Prime? All that sugar must be going to his head. No, it was probably full of, what did he say? He was drinking gin or whatever it was. And yeah, I mean, going right back to what brought us to that situation, Dana White was so happy and wanted to reward the house after the great fight last week. He rewarded them by allowing them to watch the television in the living room. I was expecting, like, you guys are going out on the strip, you're going to have some dinner, going to eat some steaks. No, your reward for losing probably a lot of brain cells, you get to watch a UFC Fight Night Apex event. Absolutely.
Not only that, they are not far from the Apex. Why didn't they just go to the venue? He was like, here's your reward. Take the day off. Ridiculous.
It's true. They could have just hung around in the Apex after the fight was over, maybe for a little while, and they could have caught some of the action themselves, maybe. So, strange proceedings in the Ultimate Fighter household. But back to the more pressing issue, Edwin Cooper Jr. Normally, we see fighters, Theo, who fall off the bandwagon maybe a little bit after getting eliminated, coming on later in the tournament. They find it difficult to deal with a loss. Edwin Cooper Jr. Has not fought yet in the house. He was due to fight next week, obviously, as was mentioned at the end of the episode. But he was drunk. He was drunk in the house.
Yeah, and they even have the moment too where the producer is talking to him when they do those little one-on-one interviews, just have like his little B-roll on the side. He says, "You were heavily drinking," and he gets very upset with this. He goes, "Ah, nothing heavy about that. There's nothing heavy about that. That was something light." Blah blah blah. I'm just thinking, like, man, like that guy was out of it. Like when we say slurring his words, that doesn't even begin to like describe it properly. He was way out of it, way out of it. Massive, massive problem, especially when you're in a house full of guys competing for the same exact thing you, and the competition is to hurt each other. Very bad habits to be having.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever it is, I mean, he tried to play it down, but it is an issue. It obviously has been an issue if they've been talking about it the way they have been talking about. I mean, it was Usmanov, or yeah, that came up to him, a teammate from him and from Jackson, went to kind of check on him, see if he was doing okay. I mean, a very kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of funny moment for me when he was sitting on the couch bragging about being John Jones's teammate and drinking before before a fight. I mean, that's what Usmanov was saying as well. Is like, what are people going to be thinking of Jackson Rink? Those guys would be wiling out up in that gym in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I understood Beck's perspective too, because Beck is a guy who goes there, he does the right things. We've talked about in previous episode, he sacrifices so much. He lives at Jackson Wink in a dormitory upstairs. So like for him, like respect and honor and like all that stuff, like that's everything to him. So imagine being in his perspective. You got this guy who is your teammate, who's a guy that you do respect. You've been on the journey with him for some of it. And then all of a sudden you guys get to the tough house and he's acting a fool. Like, I would be super frustrated in Beck's shoes there. So, not only that, but I feel like when he went up to go talk to him, he did a great job of, like, leveling with him and being like, "Hey, like, I get it, blah, 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 like, but this is where we are. We have to do X, Y, and Z." He didn't talk down to him. He didn't yell at him. He didn't do any of that stuff. I think he was actually a really, really consolable guy to go deal with that. And I think that's only positive moving forward for Beck. It shows he has great character, and I think he's a great teammate because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Look at a lot of shit talk coming watching the fight night event. Uh, no real threat of it spilling over into any fisticuffs or anything like that. But you could see that was a topic of conversation in the house. It was a little bit of a frustration as well. That carried over into the gym, into a kind of a schooling session between Ryan Loader and Edwin Cooper Jr. Edwin Cooper Jr. threw the elbow. I can understand what he was saying. He loosely threw the elbow, and sometimes you just go into that flow movement and it can land, but you gotta be aware of what you're throwing. And you can understand the frustration of Ryan Loader when it happened as well. I mean, if you're Ryan Loader, you're sitting back, you're watching what's happening maybe the night before, Edwin Cooper Jr. getting boosted up, then he's coming in and being careless in the gym. You can understand Loader's real kind of frustration with that kind of incident.
Not only that, but it's 3 days before his fight. So this guy's living in the house with all these people. They've had this drama going on with Cooper. He's probably thinking to himself like, okay, whatever. Like this is all happening as I'm cutting weight, as I'm getting ready for this fight. It's in a couple days. I just need to stay out of it. I just need to stay cool, not escalate anything, and I'll be fine once this fight is over. We can deal with it all afterwards. And then all of a sudden, the guy who he's worried about is in the gym with him and he's sparring in a reckless way without the elbow pads on, throwing an elbow strike. Very big no-no, especially when you're that close to a fight. And he just lost it. And Edwin, it felt like Edwin knew right away. He was like, that was stupid. Like, I didn't even mean to do that. Really, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He said it over and over again. But man, like it really set Ryan off. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him, honestly. You're that close. This opportunity for them in the tough house is so massive because obviously they can win their way into the UFC, but like they don't come from much other than that. Like Ryan doesn't really have that much going for him in MMA outside of that. Not to say he's not a great fighter, but like they don't have the same connections. They can't just like go over to a PFL and make X amount of money. Like it's not that easy for these guys who are trying to break in initially. So when something as avoidable as that happens in the gym, I totally get where he's coming from. That's a stupid thing to do. But I did think my biggest takeaway from that whole exchange was Shevchenko
Yeah.
controlled that incredibly. She got right on it, immediately got them away from each other, and then brought the whole team together to talk about what was going on and how we should be acting as martial artists. I thought that she was tremendous in that situation.
She absolutely was, and you got to control that situation as well. Before look at the end of the day, you're hyped up when you're in there. Um, Emotions are high. That thing can escalate, and we've seen situations like that escalate a hell of a lot more quickly than what could have happened on the latest episode here. But I think Shevchenko, like you said, did a fantastic job. Got them out on the boat, got them out on to do a bit of fishing or whatnot as well, kind of further cooler the situation as well after that. That's something that I am noticing with Shevchenko. It's hard in the gym, but then you have those rewards outside of the gym to kind of take your mind off things as well. So from a coaching perspective, Theo, fantastic from Shevchenko. As always, the UFC production team do a fantastic job in telling people's stories, and we got to hear the story of Tom Theocaris ahead of his fight with Ryan Lauder. And I tell you, man, Tom Theocaris has been through the ringer.
He absolutely has, man. And what was interesting as well is they sort of open up this one section where they're saying, "Oh, what's that tattoo?" And he goes, "Oh, it's my ex-girlfriend who passed away, blah blah blah." And they say, like, "Oh, when this happened?" And he says 2021. This is not that long ago. It's 3 years ago. That's still a very open wound for someone like that. And it's the picture of her as she's leaving to go on the flight. It's the last picture he has of her. It's a very sentimental moment. Again, all the guys at that table were great about it. They were very understanding. They were very, they were there for him. That they didn't say too much, not too little. I love the chemistry in the house thus far, and this is just one of those other moments where it was on display here. But he goes through that issue. This happens in August of 2021, soon after he finds Elias Theodoro of UFC fame as well, up in Canada. And they start bonding. He eventually says to him, "Hey, like Elias, like, is there any way I can come live with you?" Blah blah blah. They live together for a while, and then Elias, as we all know, unfortunately passes away as well in September of 2022. So this guy Tom, not even like just throughout his life, the last couple of years have been extremely tough for him. And that just kind of goes to show you, like, a lot of people just like find solace in their craft, and for these guys, it's the gym. Tom spoke on that a lot. He said, like, that's just one of the things that helps me out is when I stay active, when I keep training. Got to keep doing those things to make myself feel better. And honestly, it's inspiring to see a guy in his position reach the height of the Ultimate Fighter house. We talk a lot about how these guys, this is a stepping stone for them to get to where they want to be. But the Ultimate Fighter house in itself is a massive accomplishment too. So for him to make it there after all he's been, hats off to him. I did not know these things about his backstory. I knew that he was close with Elias, but man, all the respect to him.
Couldn't agree more with what you said there. I mean, credit to Tom for opening up and letting us into some of the tragic events that he's recently had. But look, this was the good news story. He got to the Ultimate Fighter house. He's been working hard. Had a tough draw against Ryan Lauder here in the middleweight division. Ryan Lauder coming in here as a Division 1 wrestler. You know, we had said, look at the quality of competition that Tom had faced before this was a little bit of a worry heading in. And I think you specifically said that, Theo. Um, you know, Ryan Lauder obviously has his style, and that's a difficult style to face. But you need that level of competition to kind of get yourself ready for moments like this. And we'll talk about the fight in a couple of minutes. But it was a massive mountain for Tom Theocaris to climb before he even stepped into the octagon, and obviously another big one again once he did step in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of alluded to this as well in the last show when we heard this matchup. We're like, "Ooh, this is a really bad matchup for a guy who fights like Tom does." Ryan, of course, all-American wrestler, D1. The famous phrase for anyone outside of America, whenever you hear that, just an extremely good college wrestler. So, I mean, this guy also trains up in Sacramento with the likes of Uriah Faber at Team Alpha Male. They changed their name. I don't know what the new name is, but to me, forever and always, it's Team Alpha Male.
Really? I didn't even know they changed their
They
name.
did change it. It's so insignificant that I don't even know what the new name is. So
Oh,
from
yeah, it'll
it's
always be
Team
Alpha
Alpha
Male to
Male.
me.
It's
Yeah.
Team Alpha Male. So yeah, I mean he teams up with him. He also opens up a lot about how his teachers didn't believe in him when he was very young in elementary school, and how they said that he might have to pick up a trade or something because he's not picking up on certain things in the classroom. Comes to find out later on in life that he's actually dyslexic. And he goes on to talk about how, like, if there's anyone out there who's listening who's going through the same things that I went through when I was younger, like, just know, like, you just got to find your thing and all this stuff. Very inspiring from both guys heading into this fight. But that seemed to be one thing that Ryan kept going back to in the interviews, and he kept getting very emotional about it. He kept saying, like, if you feel like you're stupid, you just have to work harder than other people, and like that's I sometimes I feel like I'm not there with everyone else, and I feel like I have to work way harder than everyone else. Just know you're not alone. Like, very, very inspiring stuff. So I was happy with the background on both of these guys. But yeah, Ryan Loder, incredible wrestler, incredible guy. Just what's not to love about this guy?
Two great guys, to tell you the truth, great stories, and look at, to be a fighter, like, those are the things that create fighters. I mean, you gotta find that dark place. You gotta have those uncomfortable conversations with yourself, and you gotta go there. And you know, it's a fighter always has a lot more substance than you think. It's not all just talking hard and throwing punches hard and stuff like that. So credit to the two guys for opening up there. The fight itself was probably the how can I put this nicely? There's no way to put it nicely. It was probably the most least entertaining of thing of the episode this week. As the two guys touched hands, Tom looked the bigger guy inside the cage, Theo, but Ryan closes the distance immediately, takes down Dom off the cage, and starts hammering punches from the half guard. He quickly moves in to the head and arm choke before getting the tap from mounted position. I don't even think he turned the corner on it. I think he got it from the mounted position, a pretty good squeeze. And we got the tap out from Tom Teokaris. It was over in round one. We knew it was going this way. You always know about the timing. We were getting 10 minutes before the end of the episode. We had no weigh-ins yet, so we had a feeling. You text me, you said, I think this is going to be a quick one. I said, I think you're right. And it turned out to be a very quick one, Theo.
It did, and as soon as this happened, I just thought back to last episode, and I was like, why was the only preview for this? This is a classic wrestler versus striker matchup, and then they just cut to the B roll. Like, they usually build up something like that a lot more. I feel like this episode had lost substance in it, and they gave us the backgrounds of these guys, and they did such a good job of telling their stories. And then the fight, I get it's a quick finish fight. There's not much of a story to tell about the fight, but like, it felt like that was a big moment that they didn't really get us ready for. So when it happened, I was like delightedly surprised. I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually something to look forward to." When really they had basically told us, "Get ready, this is going to be a lay and pray." But yeah, really, like, the first thing I thought was, "Why would they tell us it like that?" But yeah, extremely impressive. Like we had said earlier, it's a really, really tough matchup to ask Tom to do well in. That's just a horrible matchup for anyone who fights in his style. So yeah, I thought it was a great job by Ryan, and he took 0 damage, which is huge going forward in the tournament.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, I mean, that's a huge benefit to him heading into the next one. Quick and easy, gets the tap early, takes no damage. Just the perfect kind of scenario that you would face in the Ultimate Fighter house, and it sets him up lovely for the semi-final showdown that he will eventually be in a later episode. We did get next week's matchup. It's Edwin Cooper Jr., the man himself, the face beside episode 6. Maybe will be the focus of attention on episode 7 as well. Takes on Brazilian Marion Santos, who looks cool and calm and composed heading into this fight, and quite the polar opposite for Edwin Cooper Jr., who seems to be on kind of a bit of a spiral in there with his boozing, and it'll be interesting to see how he kind of flips things around next week ahead of the fight as well. So how do you think that fight is going to go down, Theo? What are you thinking about that one?
I don't know. I don't know what happens in this fight. Some people do know because like things get leaked, obviously. We are not in the business of trying to find out what happens before it does. We don't want any spoilers, so please don't tell us. But if I had to guess, based on the way, not even matchup wise, just based on the way that they have introduced Edwin to us in the past episode, right before this next one where he fights, and they don't do it in a flattering way, it feels like they're building up a guy who they want you to not be a fan of, so that when guy B comes in and beats him, you think, oh, this is my guy now. So I think Mayron Santos is an incredible fighter, super dangerous with the leg kicks. Has a really good record as well. Like fought some actually really tough guys to get to the
Yeah.
house. But Edwin Cooper's no joke either. Like this is going to be a great matchup. I want to see these guys exchange on the feet early. But I do think based just on the way the production has been leading into this one, I think it's Santos all the way.
Indeed, it's going to be a fantastic fight. We'll see if Theo is right next week and he calls another one exactly as it is. I don't know. Do you have some executive producer rights on this this season, Theo? Because you're calling a lot of shots there. But we will find out for sure. Edwin Cooper Jr., Marion Santos next week on episode 7. We'll be here to break it down. One more thing from Theo before we go.
This is a fact check from earlier. Team Alpha Male officially changed their name back in 2019 to Team Alpha MMA to get more with the times.
There
Apparently,
you go. Fair play. Fair play. Fair play.
it's still Team Alpha Male.
Still Team Alpha Male for me too. That's it. That's been episode 6 recap. We'll be back next week for episode 7. Edwin Cooper Jr., Maron Santos. Let's do it.